families during COVID-19 and distance learning. So we're super.
Go for it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Andrian.
I'm Megan Sweet.
And this is The Awakening Educator. And we are super excited to be with you here on a Friday afternoon. And our guests are Amber Blackwell and Curtis Lee of Higher Ground. And I'm so excited to hear about the work that they're doing. They have been filling this incredibly important gap for some of our most impacted families during COVID-19 and distance learning. And in addition to just jumping in and filling this need, they have been creating innovative programs that for some of our kids are working better and providing opportunities for them to grow and learn. And so we're really hoping to hear what they're doing now, but also what's in the future so that we can bring this learning and experience when we emerge from COVID-19. So I would like to, Amber, if you can introduce yourself, and then Curtis, tell us a little bit about you and your program today.
All right. I am Amber Blackwell Lee, and I am here with my husband and colleague, Curtis Lee. And together we work at Higher Ground Distance Learning Hub. And as a part of the Distance Learning Hub, we also do outdoor activities. And I'll let Curtis introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Curtis Lee. I'm the program manager for the Distance Learning Hub / Outdoor Adventure. And I'm happy to be here and discuss some of the ways in which we're opening children up, to where they stand on this planet and their role in it, what they need to do to be connected to it.
That's a great entry point. I love that. I want to hear more about that specific thing, which is how are you? I mean, so it would probably be good to hear a little bit more about what Higher Ground does. And you said you do Learning Hub and outdoor education, but how do those pieces fit together? What age groups do you serve? All that kind of stuff.
Okay, I'll start. Higher Ground is a nonprofit organization. We've been around for about 20 years, and Susan and I joke around a lot. We started this beautiful journey together 20 years ago as young, bright-eyed educators stepping into the education arena to really make a change. And so we just kind of bonded around that passion. And we worked together at a charter school that was also innovative in a lot of the strategies and approaches that they took to educating children and looking at the whole child. And environmental education was one of those things. And during our sojourn there, we, it was a collection of us, about 5 of us, and we felt that we could, do it better. So we came to educational concepts and a school curriculum that looked at the entire family as well as the intellectual and spiritual development through environmental education of the kids. So based on that, I just kind of continued to build the wheelhouse through different jobs. We winded up working together at a mental health organization in which we were able to then integrate our passions for mental health into the greater approach to education. And we found that the trifecta, so to speak, of intellect and outdoors and mental health could really make a difference in the lives of the Black and brown children that we were serving at the time. And so as we began to move on in our careers, we both continued to serve that population of children. And we wound up doing comprehensive after school programs at 6 different elementary schools in District 6 and 7, which are some of the highest trauma-stricken areas of Oakland. So what we do within our after school program is provide supplemental trauma-informed services to the schools. We do this in the daytime as well as after school. And through that work, another colleague that was on the school board suggested to someone that she knew, us to possibly provide a hub when the pandemic hit. She was aware of the work that we were already doing in the schools, and she felt that it would be that we would be a good fit to be able to provide a partnership for Prescott Elementary in West Oakland, to be able to serve their kids. So we agreed, and here we are with implementing a program that we've been doing in the schools, just kind of bits and pieces. But now we get the opportunity, like I said, to combine all three of those things together. So in the morning when we do the distance learning, it's very academic. However, we are able to provide wraparound services to the children and their families because we drop off food for them, as well as provide food pickups for them. And we work with the children on engagement. If they are having some challenges, we then implement our behavioral health programming that includes now the neurosequential model that we are piloting with Miss Andrian. And so we're gonna do some revolutionary work around how to prevent the blowouts that children may be having if, in different types of environments. So we're really excited about that. And then, like I said, the third part of that leg is the outdoor adventure, in which we take kids out into nature to be able to get themselves grounded. And at that point, I can turn it over to Coach Curtis so he can talk about how they're grounded in that outdoor experience.
Well, first and foremost, they get fresh air and they get to move freely in open spaces. I mean, that's first and foremost. And then it's the sounds, colors, it's the textures. You get to smell it. You get to if we're at the shoreline, you can taste it because the moisture there. And you can see it opens up a different part of the children you don't see inside the box, as I frame it. Get to see them outside the box, because due to COVID, at home they're in the box.
Yeah.
So
I love that you're bringing up the textures and the sounds and the like the sensory piece. And, as we're developing this neurosequential model, and if you're interested more in that model, you can go back and listen to our episode with Dr. Bruce Perry. He talks a little bit more in detail about what the neurosequential model is, and we can talk. But Curtis, the way I can hear and feel the healing that happens for the kids in those sensory experiences of just being outside and being in nature. And I almost heard birds as you were talking and saying that, like I could almost hear them in my, I was like, oh, I closed the window before this because I didn't want any distracting noises. And now I'm just, I could hear the, anyway, I think that those are those experiences that you're giving to kids.
Yeah, excuse me, but it's the same way for me too. But when I'm out there, I'm experiencing the same thing they are experiencing. So they know that it's a genuine thing that they're experiencing. They don't have to hold back. They actually get to get free. They like, they're running over here. And I'm like, go run over there.
And then when he gets home that night, he's like, oh my goodness, run bath water. I've been hiking with the children all day. I'm torn up.
Yeah. So, but it's a different form of engagement. It's one thing to sit in the classroom and learn from a distance. When people been teaching you all your life in person, now you have to sit in front of a computer and learn. And it's challenging for most children who don't have the attention span to sit in front and pay attention. And there's other things going on in their environment. I'm talking about in their home environment. It's other people in that dwelling. So they have to deal with that, and the teacher has to deal with the background noise even when the child is allowed to speak.
Yeah.
You cut their microphone. So anyway, it's getting outside of that form of sensory, out into the natural world. You can see that whatever was weighing down on the child throughout the day, that they was able to let some of that go. So at the end of the day,
Yeah, that's amazing.
they've experienced some. Most of them never experienced before because I try to mix it up as much as
Can you give us
I
a little
possibly
detail, like,
can, either going to the short line.
can you give us detail? So they go out every day? Where do they go? Can you tell us, like, what is the adventure?
What's the experience of it? Yeah.
They go out 3 days out of the week. 3 days out of the week, we're out and about within the regional parks throughout the Bay Area, the shorelines, um, and some of the wildlife preserves.
Mhm.
We mostly get our yeah, the new kids that's coming to the hub. We introduce them by taking the kids who've already been to like Sequoia and Roberts Park and going to call Joaquin Miller, going on the trails that they have there, and they become leaders to the
Mm.
ones that's new to the hub. And you see a level of competency they didn't show before. They like some of them never even showed they even were interested in leadership.
Mhm, mhm.
Not raising a
Yeah.
hand to pass out pencils or anything, but now they want to lead. Like, can I lead on the trail? And it's like, okay, if you're gonna lead, it's important that you be able to read the sign. So now they're understanding that if I want to lead, I'm gonna read that sign that tells us to get to the next point on the trail. So now it's making more sense to them why it's important to read. It's just opening up another form of getting that information into
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it gives them a chance to have the lived experience of, so much of what we learn in school is kind of theoretical, right? I was actually having this argument slash discussion with my kid the other day. He's like, who needs geometry? And I was like, oh, well, let me tell you how you need geometry. But, like I was like, you need math, you need all these things, but it's hard for kids to be able to connect that in. And so I think showing them in person, especially like, right, you need to be able to read the signs. Leadership's important because when you're out in nature, you're actually responsible for people's well-being. So I think this is a beautiful way of demonstrating it. And I've done a fair bit of, not a lot of research, but a fair bit of research on the impact of nature on us and our psyche. And actually in Japan, they have forest bathing, which literally just means walking amongst the trees as a part of their national health regime. So I think in some ways, the United States, we're behind the times with other cultures and other countries that recognize the power and the impact of the environment, especially when we're in in an urban one primarily. Especially this year where we're so trapped inside. I mean, I can't imagine a better gift to lean on outdoor experiences this year when we feel so confined. Even if we do get to go out and walk around, the feeling of confinement is so intense that to be able to connect to nature and bring kids to spaces where maybe they don't get to go otherwise, it's just such an amazing opportunity for the kids. So that's awesome.
And
And
also,
you write about this in your book too, right, Megan? In Your
Yeah.
Three Eyes, you write about the
Mhm.
importance of nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
And their masks, their masks are a constant reminder of the confinement.
That's
Mhm.
right. That's
Mhm.
right.
what I was getting ready to add is that when we do go out on the trail, we have to teach children trail safety or just having trail etiquette, especially in this COVID era, and how if we're in a group, we need to stand to the side and let the smaller group pass before us because it's a shorter period of time for them to pass. Remaining on the right side of the trail, and then most of all, leaving no trace. So when we come to the parks, when we leave, we're not leaving anything behind. Everything we came with, we take with us or we throw in the trash. We don't litter. So they're starting to gain a better understanding of why they should not litter and understanding nature.
And they have a little chant that they kind of take turns, but it's the leader's responsibility as they're practicing their trail etiquette in the COVID times, is that when they are approaching people, the leader is supposed to say, mask up and everybody knows to, put their masks up, because one of the pieces about the outdoor adventure, like you said, is the freedom. So when we get out the van, we go over the rules and the trail etiquette. And if you're the leader, you stand to the side, you look for the poison ivy or whatever we've learned about that it's on.
Did you learn that the hard way with the poison oak?
Train them ahead of time, because we do the training.
That's
so
right.
that
We do plan identification.
And
That's
so
good.
plan identification, that's kind of how our leaders pop, because they can recognize the plants. And like we talked about, they know they can connect faster because they know how it looks, they know how it smells, they know how it feels. So when they see it again, it's an instant recall. So after we go about 2 times, probably after the first 2 weeks of the recall and the agreements and all of that, they're ready. And one of the pieces around the leadership is that when we're at the hub, we engage in an incentive-based program, whereas we have agreements and things of that nature that point to the behaviors that we want to see. So when they go on the trail and we talk about, the leader begins to talk about how we're supposed to engage, the agreements that we have at the center translate to the trail. So some of the kids that were having problems with keeping these agreements in the hub have no problem keeping them on the trail. And as a matter of fact, they know the agreements better than the kids who never, who always honor those agreements.
So let's talk about that a little bit. I'd like to dig into that, because I think, like even the kids that are signed up for the hub, many of them have life circumstances that were quite challenging, and they just weren't able to engage in distance learning. So you have kids, and I know many of these kids, and some of them really struggled when we were in the building, and they didn't get as much access to their instruction. And I'm wondering when you see the opportunity to engage in nature, and so the incentive during the day program, what was that transition like, and how did you work with these families to be able to build that trust, build that relationship, build the rituals, and then where's it going?
Let me speak
Okay,
first.
go ahead.
So organizationally, we kind of, Higher Ground as an organization kind of has a parent engagement component that's a wraparound kind of service. So our approach to educating the child already kind of encompasses their families. So our approach is always kind of trauma informed. And so I wanted to just put that piece out there, that the staff is already kind of trained in that, because it's an organizational practice. So it made it that much easier to be able to translate that into the hub. And like Susan and I talked about also, and it was easier because it's consistent. It's something that we can control those variables, and consistent and controlled variables. And I will let Coach Curtis share with you what those variables are and how they keep it consistent, because him and his team are the ones that create those opportunities at the hub day to day.
Well, first and foremost, it took a pretty minute to figure out what was going on with the children, because they came without any background information. But through Higher Ground practices, we monitor, and we observe, and we just take notations. Definitely, we do a 90-day observation, but we definitely for 30 days, we're gonna take notes and see what's going on with the child, and try to reach out, because some of it may just be simple reminders to the parent, about maybe he's drinking too much at night, right? Because he's coming to school smelling like urine. So maybe he needs, lower his consumption. I mean, that has happened. But in most cases, we just try to support the parents, in getting the kids to the hub, providing transportation, opening up lines of communication, showing that, we're not just there because we have a job. We really care about the community, and we're trying to help. And from there, they either going to trust us or not. In most cases, they've trusted us. and by trusting us and by the kids trusting us, we've been able to help them. And go ahead.
And it took about 8 weeks. We found that it takes about 8 weeks of getting to know you. And one of the really special things about Coach Curtis is that he gets kids and families to open up in less than 8 weeks. So at the pod, we kind of had a line on the kids. I'm gonna say maybe after the 3rd week for sure, we knew that either something was up, so we need to be going to the house more and asking more open-ended questions just to see, what comes out. Because, children are very honest, and you say, hey, what did you do last night? And they will tell you, oh, I was up with mama till 2 in the morning. And that's oh, that's why your sister sleep. Now that makes sense why she needed to come in here and go to sleep, because she was up at 7:30 getting ready to come to the hub. And we feel that constant, that home visit, even though it's kind of hard to mandate and legislate that, although within Higher Ground we do home visits, because we know that it's sometimes our families need to be seen outside of the school system, but that adds a different set of accountability. So some of the contact and connection that coach is able to have, the larger school setting is not able to have, because it's just not as personable. I'm showing up with food for your child, and I'm not saying why they not at school, what y'all doing. I'm just saying, hey, we was concerned. We want to make sure that, that little guy has his food, or, that you guys are okay. And that is what really propels the relationship, especially when we're dealing with our trauma, our families that, what we call them, extra love. So our families that need extra love, we find that's just showing up. And what, as we are, as Black people, we show up, and then they say, oh, I see myself, or your child comes to the hub and they see themselves reflected in the art that's on the wall. They see themselves reflected in the things that the care and concern that we give, because again, like Curtis said, we let them know that we're here to help in the community. And that's just kind of a refreshing alternate to what they get when they have to go to the school. Because you have to be so professional, and you have to make sure nobody want to sue you, and you have to make sure nobody's going to go to the school board. So you can't say, hey, look, this is what I'm seeing. And that, a lot of times that's what we're able to do, in the freedom that being at the center and not at the school site kind of gives us, because we're able to be candid with the parents, and the parents are able to be candid with us. So that, but if I had to put like a time frame on it, it takes about 8 weeks. But like he said, we're observing, we're looking for patterns, we're pushing to see how far we could push before you blow out. We're already structuring in breaks, because we know that you're 7, or we know that you're 9 and you need a break. So some of the stuff we're already able to do ahead of time that helps.
I think
We have
that
a question. Go ahead.
Oh, you have a question in the chat? Go ahead.
Live question from the Facebook audience asking
Okay,
around
go ahead.
funding.
Do that first.
Yeah, so there's some questions about who pays for this program and how it's funded.
Okay, so Oakland Unified was provided with some grant funding. I'm not sure where the funding came from, but when the pandemic first hit, we saw on the news people was giving $1 million to the school district and different things of that nature. So I believe that out of those generous donations, Oakland Unified decided to test out community pods. And this was after other places had been doing them, and they were kind of being held up as a possible solution to the children who are not logging on. So like I said, so the funding was grant funded. The Oakland Unified School District contracted with us to provide the hub. So the funding came through a contract with Oakland Unified School District. And I do believe that
I know from our end, because
School District was able to pay for the community hub through the grants.
Yeah, and on our end, there was some funding specifically
go
for
ahead, Susan.
foster youth and underhoused, unhoused youth and foster youth. And so there had been some funding that came through there. So those students were prioritized for the Learning Hub. So the students that were referred came through a coordination of services team at the school site, and some of the funding I think came from there as well. But go ahead,
Yes,
Megan. I don't know.
that's helpful. I'm just going to repeat back because that's what I like to do, because that's how I learn. So you're just going to hear me repeating back some things I heard. Around the funding, I think lots of different school districts are getting funding to do the hubs, and I'd love to talk a little bit more about just the logistics of hosting a hub, because I think it's one of the things that schools some of them haven't been doing hubs yet and are just opening up to it. So there's this notion of there's a lot of curiosity about the hubs and what the impact could be. But I know that there's often some funding for that. And what I heard from you, Susan, is that through your school referral system, you identified kids that would be most appropriate for the hub. And that's how they got identified for Higher Ground. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, and they were students who had priority, their, LCAP priority and other things of that nature for funding streams.
Yeah. I wanted to highlight a couple of things that you named that I think are really, really important for folks that are wanting to engage with any population within a school, but especially high need populations or populations that share a background or identity that aren't the same as your own, so that don't share your identity. One thing I heard that I just think is the most important, and I feel like it's like a need to demystify the way we impact students and families, is by actually just getting curious and caring about them and showing love, and by consistently showing up. I think it's the most, I've done a lot of things. I worked in Oakland for a long time, and people would often wonder how I did stuff. And I'm like, I just showed up, and I showed up consistently, and I was myself, and I told the truth. And that actually goes a long way for everyone. And I meant it. So I never showed care that I didn't mean. I care a lot, so that's not hard for me, but it was never insincere. But I also then could say hard things and hold people accountable, because they knew that I was going to show up and I was going to listen. So I'm hearing that you're doing that, and I think that that's really phenomenal. The other thing that you named that I think is really important, it doesn't happen enough, because I think people feel uncomfortable, or again, if it's families or communities that aren't shared by the teachers or the other adults that are working with the kids, is those home visits and visiting with families where they live. And you named one of the things, Amber, which is you're showing up in their space where they're going to be more comfortable. And I think people don't often realize how much education settings, and like schools in particular, hold this institutional energy and kind of formality that can be really difficult for families to plug into and feel safe in, especially if they didn't have a good experience in school themselves. And there's a high correlation between those two things, right? So families with kids that are having need often didn't do so well in school themselves. Not always, but there's that correlation there. So if you're asking families to come to a space where they weren't successful and where they likely experienced trauma, and now they need to be there to support their child, it just makes a lot of barriers that are really unnecessary. I think you also learn a lot about a kid's life and their experience, and not to be a spy or a snoop, but like when you're in someone else's space, you just get a lot of information about what the kid's life experience is that then can inform how the kid is showing up in school, and therefore how we support them when they're at school. So I just want to name just what a powerful role that is. And also attending to children's needs. So I love that you all bring food to the families. It's one of the things that I didn't, and I didn't grow up with a lot of money. So in my household, my dad worked at a grocery store. So we had we ate the food with the labels that had fallen off. So we never knew what we would open up in the can. Was it going to be dog food or peaches? We weren't sure. And it was always an adventure. So I didn't grow up with a lot of money or access to food, but we always had something. And so as an educator, I didn't appreciate the role that food plays, and maybe as a white woman as well. Food doesn't have as strong of a cultural bond within white culture as in other cultures. So I didn't understand the role that food plays with families, especially families in high poverty situations. So the fact that you're attending to the family's needs, that you're bringing food in, is such a crucial part of that trust building, and also just meeting families where they are and where their needs are. So I just want to just call out those things, because for me that feels just so important and validating for the students' experiences. And I know you all know that, but I'm really saying it for everybody who doesn't know that. So repeat it back, because I think those are are really important elements of starting to build trust and learning to support our families. So thank you for all of that. Yeah.
And there was one
And
other thing I would have
go ahead.
like to add. It's
All right,
the
Curtis.
mental health piece. So the
Yeah.
children, first of all, like I said, get out of the box. Not going from one box to another box and just transferring from one box to the next. Actually getting out. it it
Mhm.
helps them mentally.
Mhm, mhm.
It does, and you can see the difference in the children, even the ones that was having a bad day, that's walking 20 feet behind, and you have to keep saying, "Come on,"
Mhm.
get in the move. You'll see that they're taking their time, and they're absorbing it. And by the time they catch up with the group, they've been done calm down and
Yeah,
participating in
that's
the rest of
yeah,
the
that's really
activities
huge,
that we're doing.
Curtis. Yeah. I mean, I do that with my own kid too. He'll want to stay inside and he'll stay locked in. I'll be like, nope, we're going for a walk. And he will pitch a fit. But that if I actually get him out of the house, same thing. So I think for all of our kids, they need out of the house. And if our kids
Mhm.
don't have access to nature or trees or things that are going to help them feel grounded, and there's lots of stuff on like the actual grounding nature of being in
Mhm.
nature, it really helps to shift our moods, and it carries it with us. It helps for adults too. So yeah, so thank you for naming that. And yeah, my kid will admit it. He's like, okay, you're right. I really needed the walk. I'm like, I know you did. Just, stop fighting me. But every day it's a fight. So I appreciate that you're fighting some kids to get them out the door, because it's exhausting as an adult, frankly, to do that. So you're providing that energy and that motivation that a lot of parents don't have right now, because we're all kind of running on fumes. So thank you for that as well.
And Coach mentioned that plus they will sleep at night. So
Yes.
that will also address them, being up,
Mhm.
trying to
Yeah.
be grown all night. They can't even help it. They whooped.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah.
true. That's
In a good
important.
way. There's a couple things I want to make sure we cover too. I do want to hear about, so the learning hubs are the kids are logging on to their distance learning from the hub. So I'm curious about partnership with their classroom teacher, and also how you're managing any of the avoidance behavior, some of the challenges there. And then I would love to give you an opportunity to kind of talk about where we're in this rolling out of the neurosequential model. We've done an episode in the past with Dr. Bruce Perry, who was the developer of the neurosequential model. So we'd love to share with the audience what that looks like at Higher Ground, because it looks different at different places. And also, I know I'm asking two questions, but those are two kind of key things I want to make sure that we cover before we go. And so I'll let you go wherever you want to feel compelled first.
So initially, we just were surprised, providing support for the teacher, making sure the children, from a technical standpoint, were able to log into their Zoom classes and be online and pay attention to what's going on in the classroom. But often we found out with their noise canceling headphones, we can't hear what the teacher is saying. We had to get tablets to log into the classroom so we can monitor the classes by tablet. So now we can hear what the teacher is saying. I can look on the screen, see which of those children that I'm responsible for doesn't have their camera on, making faces into the camera, whatever it happens to be, or just not participating. And hearing the instruction from the teacher. So now, instead of them asking, "Hey, Coach Curtis, my teacher said I need to get a piece of paper and a pencil," now I already know the teacher what they need, and then start passing it out.
So you're like basically sitting in on the class, but doing it virtually on an iPad nearby, so that you're
In the
able to
room with them,
anticipate
in the
their
room
needs
with
and
them,
support.
not in the iPad nearby, in the room with them.
In the room with them.
Right. So I'm circulating, because even though I might see them on the screen, they still might be up to something else other than what they're supposed to be focused on. So I'll just go and make sure that they're fully in their classroom, because our kids are getting clever with their computers.
And one thing, a couple of years ago, some of my staff went to a STEM expo in San Diego. And in San Diego, all of their teachers and students have computers and tablets. And so the students, as a part of their classroom instruction, are going online and getting digital instruction, but the teacher has a tablet, which gave me the idea that that's, you know, we should do that, even when we wanted to do it even as a part of our regular after school program, but that's a whole overhaul, and at home where you wanted us to do homework and all of this stuff. But we had already saw how we could use these computer driven educational tools and have the tablets and help engage. So not only is coach able to get pencils and paper, when they say raise your left hand, he's able to still engage and show them in person, this is your left hand, you put this one up, you know. So having that additional electronic device, like you said, allows us to sit in on the class, and they kind of got their own teacher, like you said, Susan. So, you know, it's like 8 of them, and we have 2 people. So when we teach our distance learning, we always have 2 people in that class. One person that teaches, because you need to be engaging and be entertaining and all of that. And you still need somebody to engage your students. You still need somebody to say, oh, well, Megan, I noticed you didn't raise your hand. Or, hey,
You
Susan,
know Megan, huh?
what are you doing? You know, what you got going on? So if I'm teaching and I'm really involved in my lesson, I may not be able to do that. So just as a standard practice, we have 2 people in the room. And then, like we said, when we're engaging in their academic portion, we have that additional aid assist us. One thing we also found is that we had to get the children the headphones, because at first it was just open and we were just going around. But then we were like, well, if we want to be intentional, like, you know, we all like this in the screen, all of you know, sometimes we was all over the, you know, figure it out. So, you know, you definitely have to have another device that will allow you to learn alongside. And you also have, if you're a teacher, and a lot of teachers don't have that, but to have that additional assistant person, whether you train another student, you know, we found that the same way that you give students roles in the classroom, you can also give them roles in the Zoom room as well.
Like a tech lead or a
Yep.
I saw one that was like a joke teller the other day. The teacher has a joke teller role every day, so it's somebody's job.
Right. And so those are all the different things that you do to create that engagement. So and then you have buy-in. And with children, we already know, even when you're learning in person, they have to have buy-in. And that's one of the things that we found is hard for the teachers, and Coach was saying that this morning. For some teachers, you need to be face-to-face. Some teachers need to be their best educator. They need to be in, you know, with the children. So in the absence of that, you know, what do you do? Even as an educator, in the absence of that, what do? You have a joke teller. That's what you do. You have different activities that cause you to be able to still put your hand on the kid. You tap the screen, tap, high five to the left, you know, so you really have to get creative in doing those type of things. So, you know, it wasn't really a hard stretch for us to switch over to the distance learning, because so many pieces of our program already involved activities that were around sense of belonging. We already had activities that were around checking in and checking for feelings and checking for understanding. So now we just had to be more animated on the screen. And so for some of us who are children of the 70s, I won't date myself, but I remember we had romper room, if everybody can that. And so, you know, you be all in the screen waiting for her to call your name. I see Judy. I see she's, you know, she never called my name. I'm like, I'm right here. Why you not saying I see Amber? Because I see you, but we were drawn in, you know. So we saw at the beginning of television with Sesame Street and all of that, that it can be done, because that's how they got us hooked on media. So now,
Amber,
you know, as we went older, we're media consumers.
You're speaking my language, Amber. I bring up romper. I was scarred by romper room too. Never did she say Megan, and all the times that I saw romper room, And I would wait for it and wait for it. And I'm still a little bit bitter. So I'm so glad that you shared that experience. I brought it up just last week. I'm not even kidding.
Oh, we had it on our show. We talked about it on our show a couple times about this
I
experience.
can't get over it. So I am totally with you that is a thing. So I love that you named that. It just makes me feel so validated. One of the things I'd love to, so what I heard you say is that so you have, I mean, number one, you've been having the kids on tablets and you've been using electronics. So you're ready to make this switch over to electronics and that's helpful. You're finding ways to make that connection with kids across the digital lines because you were already doing that. So I think in a lot of educators, I've just been kind of blown away by their capacity to do that.
Absolutely.
And so you're taking the classes with the kids then? Is that how it's working? So if they're in the learning hub with you, are they in the room with you? And then you're also online with them on your own device as they're learning in the day?
Yes.
Neat.
So we have a group of 16. We got 2 adults and 2 junior leaders that work with us. So we've got a class size of about 8. And then they do their distance learning and we engage them and they get rewarded, for meeting goals and, engaging in the behaviors that we want to see. They break for lunch and then everybody goes to outdoor adventure. It's not a privilege, it's a right. So whatever you have done, that's not taken away. You still go. It's a part of program, and that's how we were able to see the drastic turnaround. Because you just gave us, HE double hockey sticks for the last 2 hours, and now we're in nature, and in about 10 minutes, the time that it takes for you to get out the car and still, have a grudge, and then we're saying, well, we going. And then in about 10 minutes, they're like running and maybe kicking dirt, but the engagement is building and building. So by the time they get to their destination, which is always a part of the adventure, then the kid is now forgotten about, like I said, the trauma that they just experienced for whatever reason in that distance learning box. So now, they're talking, the relationship has been repaired because, contrary to what you believe, children get attitudes. They don't like to be dealt with any kind of way. They hold grudges, all of that. But by the time we end the trip, we ready for another day. So we have attendance occasionally issues, but it's not the kids. It's not because the kids are saying, I don't want to come. It's adult stuff. And we know that because we go take the food or we, call and say, hey, where you at? And the parent got something going on that don't have nothing to do with the kid.
And
I love
COVID.
that. I love that it's
And
not
COVID.
punitive, that you get to do the outdoor adventure no matter what, because that's so much of what we do, right? We penalize kids for misbehavior by taking away the thing that's going to help them to restore themselves. So we take away recess, we take away all those things. When kids are academically behind, we take away their access to arts and other enrichment activities so that they can get caught up. And I understand why we want to do that because we want them to get caught up. But what we do is we actually take away that joy that they need to be able to connect in. I know, Susie, you probably have a question, but I have a quick question because I just feel like it's a little bit of the elephant in the room, or it's the elephant in the rooms that I'm in, which is there's just so much fear around being in person with kids and around reopening and around the idea of these hubs. So I'm just wondering, you guys have been at it for a while. Was that a barrier for you? Was it not? How do you work with it? And everyone makes their own personal decision around whether or not they can handle it. But I just know that it's a really hot topic around opening back up again and being with kids and being safe. So I just was wondering if you could talk to that a little bit.
Well, first and foremost, it's about sticking to protocol when it comes to sanitation. First and foremost, and if you, I mean, people gonna not have their mask all the way up at times. You have to particularly remind children pull their mask up past their nose, and not knowing that they can be spreading the disease because they're not sick, and we know that they among us all are the least likely to be sick, but can pass the disease. And just washing of hands, understanding distancing, um, and we do our temperature checks. So we do our temperature check in the morning. when they first arrive. Um, in the afternoon, we do another temperature check. And before we pass them over to their parents or whoever is picking them up, we do another temperature check. So 3 temperature checks. And we just caution the families, if even if it's a hay fever, runny nose, please keep them home. Uh,
And we'll come get them, and we'll have to come and get them if
yeah,
they,
uh,
are sneezing and stuff.
right. And again, respecting personal, space, not being all on top of each other. And again, cleanliness, keeping them hands clean, and just monitoring by the adults, just making sure that they not being unsafe towards each other.
And part of the vetting process that Oakland Unified partners did was to make sure that we had enough square footage to address the number of children that we were serving as well. And then before the children start, we have an orientation that their parents have to attend. They fill out an application, and also there's a page on there called a responsibility waiver, and they have to agree to monitor who their children are going to be around as a condition of being in the hub. You have to agree to wear a mask at all times, and if you don't have one, we'll provide you with one. And the kids have to be masked up, so we don't really so there's no problem with you coming saying, oh, I don't believe in masks or whatever. If you want to come to the hub, that's a part of what we do. You also agree that your children should wash their hands and sanitize. So all of the types of things that we're going to be working with and training the children around, we want to make sure that the parents are okay with that, so we don't have any blowback if your child has a blowout because they don't want to put on their mask, and we know, okay, well, today he's not ready. So you should come pick on because he's not ready to put his mask on. And we don't want you to be like, oh, what are you saying? No, we already agreed. So we have the agreement. When children do go away for the weekend and things of that nature, the parents do trust us enough to share, and then we'll just ask them to keep them home for 2 days. So sometimes if they go, we've had families that went, away over the holiday. So we're like, okay, well, when you come back, if you can kind of quarantine for a day or two to make sure. And then when they enter, we do the temp checks and things of that nature. So that's how we've been able to do programming. We hosted a summer program when COVID first started. That was just outdoor adventure, which kind of prepared us for the hub to be able to continue that service because we knew how to serve children safely. So and one
Thanks for
other thing
that.
that we're
Yeah.
going to add is that we're going to now start having the children clean, because in reading the some of the information on schools and sense of belonging in certain Asian countries, children help clean, and it's not a punitive measure. It's because we all live and are in this space, and we all want to be clean. So together, we're going to clean this spot and make sure that we're all safe. So that's
A community responsibility for
exactly,
this is our spot.
and put it from that kind of perspective, not from, oh, we gotta clean. No, it's after lunch. Let's clean. Let's wipe everything down and make sure that when we get here tomorrow, everything is clean and safe. So just getting them into that mindset too. So then when they return back to the class, they're responsible students. So they already know not to be breathing on people. They already know not to be sneezing. They already know that they may even be asking their teacher, where's my wipes on my desk? That they should be, wiping down their space, before they proceed. So we're already trying to get them ready also to re-enter when school does come back.
So we are getting close to out of time. We're at 4:53 already. So we have about 7 minutes, which it went really fast. We haven't had a chance to talk about the neurosequential model yet, which that's a big part of my heart and the work that we're doing. So maybe we can just take a brief moment, and we're still pretty early in this in implementing it, but I would love for you to share from your end as an organization what it is that we're doing and where it is that we hope to go, because we feel like this is the beginning, and that I know your organization is really interested in taking trauma informed to the next level, which is kind of what we've started to do. So maybe you can share share your experience with it.
I'll let Coach.
Well, so
talk.
far,
Go ahead.
we're doing check-in that was drafted by the school for us to do on a daily with the children who frequent the hub, and some of the children, not all of the children are listed, but the majority of them, and they have been flagged as being high needs.
Mhm.
And not, not just the kids, but the whole family been flagged, whether that's due to a lack of attendance or whatever. Um, so we do a check-in with the child. We ask them how they're feeling, a series of questions at this particular point in time. Uh, we're not monitoring um, Fitbits or heart. We're not using Fitbits, and we're not monitoring. We're going to start, but
Yeah.
that's been the holdup. We have to get permissions from the family before we start gathering that data. So, so next week we hope to have that completely ironed out. So really, just looking towards the spring, that's when we'll start uh, getting enough data to making some judgments about what the next steps are going to look
Yeah.
like.
So maybe I can give a little just a grounding in it, I think, because we did do an episode, and I encourage folks that are interested in this model to listen to that episode with Dr. Bruce Perry. But the neurosequential model looks at the physiology, the body, and the response to trauma. And so what Curtis is referencing is our goal is really to get Fitbits or heart rate monitors on all of the kids. And they've already started to take some data around when the students arrive in the morning, like as Curtis was saying, how did they sleep last night? How did they eat? Was there anything that happened during so that they're tracking how kids are coming in terms of like what extra supports they might need that day that may impact their ability to function that day. And then we can be tracking over time how to support them when they are having a difficult time. And the other piece of it is the goal is to get these heart rate monitors and start to track, are we seeing when kids are, their heart rate is going to go up before we see the behaviors that are a result of being dysregulated. We're going to try, and the team is going to be able to help kids both recognize in themselves and recognize in the staff to intervene when the physiological stress response starts before the behavior starts. And we started to do this in the school year. Before the kids came to the hub, we were using some Fitbits, and some of the kids were able to recognize and use some calm down tools. But our goal is really to engage the whole family, work with your team, start to collect this data so we can provide like a more somatosensory, relational, looking at these interventions that are individual for each child based on all of the data that we've collected around how they're doing over time and what are the different variables that impact whether they're doing well or not. And so we're super excited about it. And the nature piece is definitely part of it, the heart rate monitors, and it's still pretty new, but.
And also the pandemic has given us an opportunity to be able to collect two types of data. So now we're able to collect the data in the distance learning setting, and we've been able to collect the data in the face-to-face setting. And like Susan and I spoke about, and I haven't shared this conversation with Coach yet, is that one of the things that we're going to be focusing on, like you said, is in the morning when they get in, because one of the things that we talked about is that about a coach picks up some of the children that we are on our focus group. But part of the job between him picking them up and getting them to the hub is getting them ready. So we already know that the heart rate is going to be de-escalated by the time they get to the center to put the Fitbit on. So we're kind of like, okay, so at what point do we start charting the data? So Susan and I talked about when they get in the van. So when they get in the truck, we'll have some kind of ritual where they already put it on, even if they puffing and puffing, we know, put it on, and then we'll have our conversation. And by the time we get to the center, usually, like I said, they're de-escalated and they're ready to go in and learn. And so at those points, we're going to be kind of looking at what happens before, what happens after, and then if he gets them into the space de-escalated, at what point do they start to escalate, and at what are they being asked to do? So are they getting nervous when it's time to do the synchronistic and they got to be seen in their classroom? Is it going up when they say, okay, everybody, we got to log off and start doing independent work? Does it spike when they're done with all their work and we pull out a packet and say, hey, do a little bit more work? So we really want to look, like you said, at all those different kind of trigger points, and we don't know what it's going to tell us. It may just tell us that we need to have a bigger transition type activity, where we say, okay, instead of just jumping off, we may give a subtle clue as to we're getting ready to do the independent work, and tell you when we take you on your mental break, hey, now let's get ready, because now we're getting ready to do this and that. But studies show that before you go into independent and heavy work that requires concentration, you should be active. So that Fitbit is already gonna prove even more scientifically that if you engage in something where your heart rate's up first for good reasons, like exercise, like you're excited, like you're happy, and then we tell you, okay, now it's time for us to settle in and do the independent work, we should be able to see a difference in the data before we started being deliberate about preparing you for whatever stimulus had your heart rate going up. So we should be able to see that, and then we should be able to see the difference when we deliberately start doing or addressing whatever that stimulus is that's taking us up. So we've got the kids till June 30th. School is out May 29th. So the data that we're going to be looking at from now until then will have that academic piece in it. But then when May starts, we've got them a whole month where it's just outdoor adventure. So we're going to be
That's
able to
such an
see what that
exciting,
data looks like too.
yeah, that's such a,
So,
I hadn't thought about, I mean, I'm sure you guys are clever. And the idea of using Fitbits is such an exciting thing. And what an amazing way to start to monitor the kids and how their experience changes during the day. And I'm sure if you kept it on when they're out at nature too, what would happen to just monitoring and matching that to what they're doing during the day. Amber, you said something that I really love, which is you said that you're taking advantage of this moment. And I think that's the really exciting part about what you're all doing is a lot of people that are waiting for education to go back the way it was, or they're kind of locked into, they're kind of inflexible in what they're imagining, and just this idea of meeting this moment and taking the most that we can from it, and being creative. I mean, this is something that, I mean, I'm sure, I know your principal over there at Prescott. I'm sure she'd be open to it, and I'm sure you guys will talk with her. I know Susan anyway. But that this is something that then could actually totally transform the way that we support kids. And the connection I was making is I teach mindfulness, and I work in a mindfulness-based organization during the day. And we talk a lot about connecting our minds and our bodies and understanding how to get a read on what's happening in our bodies so that we can feel more regulated. Yeah, just that connection that you're naming of the physiological experience that kids are having that they might not even be cluing into. Not only are you going to catch the data.
Megan froze. But I know she's going to say, not only we're catching the data, this is our life in Zoom these days, and I know hopefully she'll come back. But my guess is she's saying that you're providing this transformational experience. I don't know if that's what she's going to say, but I feel like you're providing a transformational experience for kids, and that I know for a fact that for some of the kids that are participating in Higher Ground, they have learned more during this short time, that they have had, that this experience for them, because of the relational and the nature and all of it, has been, they've learned more, that it better matches who they are and what they need. And I think it's a gift. And I'm just really hoping that we can continue to provide experiences like this for kids, and that we don't go back to what it was. It wasn't great before for a lot of people.
Right.
Not for our babies that are doing well at the hub. It was not well for them, and they gotta have to figure out, even as we go back in our
She's back.
professional settings, they say it's not going to go back to what it was.
That's right.
It was here to stay, but like
And we don't want it to go back. We don't want it to go back. It shouldn't go back. I know we are almost at that. Megan came back. She found her way back to us. Yay, Megan. But we are coming to a close. I wanted to make sure before we left, because I forgot to include this in my my introduction of Higher Ground, that Amber was chosen for the Black Excellence Award this past month, and I just think it's such it's all the work that you've done in the city over the years, and just watching how this started as the seed and what you and Curtis have been able to build in West Oakland, a well-deserved Black Excellence Award, I think is really important to celebrate that. And so, way to go.
Thank you. I'm always so modest, and thank you.
Congratulations. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm having like the mother of all internet issues. Like it just keeps happening over and over again. So I apologize.
Right.
I'm literally onto my third internet provider now. It's just ridiculous. In 2 months, third in 2 months.
Oh, whoa.
Bad over here. But it's been such a joy to talk with both of you. So I'm so grateful. Sorry I got cut off, but I was probably rambling anyway. So no one's lost. But yeah, I'm so impressed by what you're doing and so grateful. Susan, I can tell you have something to say.
Yeah, I was just to say, Leroy Gaines, who was also a guest on our show, is sending you lots of love on Facebook too, saying how much he appreciates your program. So we love Leroy. We had him on the show.
What's up, Leroy?
So
I've listened in on that one.
oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, you did. Yeah, he's Leroy's wonderful. He's such a brilliant educator. Well, thank you both for joining us. This was such a wonderful conversation, so much inspiration for everyone out there. And I'm just so deeply grateful for your service to our students in Oakland. And in West Oakland in particular. Those are my babies over there. So I'm deeply grateful that you're there.
And we'd love to come back and share with you the data.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, absolutely.
She's like, you better share that information.
That's right.
Yeah. This is my I mean, you've all heard me talk about
Curtis. That's what's actually up. I want to show up. I'm going to show up in your van just, next week maybe. So just be warned. That's what might happen.
And check out the Higher Ground Facebook page, because they do have some videos and pictures of the kids out in nature, and it really is heartwarming to see. So
okay, and I'll link it on the website.
Thank you very
too.
much.
So yeah, thank you both very much. What a wonderful show.
Thanks for having us. This is our first podcast together.
Naturals.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Stopping live stream.